Army Military Language Training Center in Monterey, California. And here he's teaching Russian, but he knew Korean. 안녕하세요. That's hello in Korean. When we found out we were coming here, my wife said, "Oh, Door County, that's famous." I hadn't heard of Door County, but now I see why it's famous. We had a beautiful drive up here. We stopped in Appleton because I wanted to see Lawrence University.
Yeah,
That's a treat.
Yeah, a beautiful campus. And we looked up a little bit about Lawrence and found out that a fourth of the students are music majors, which is disproportionate in any university.
For sure.
But that tells you their emphasis, their strength. I love to visit universities, just to look at them, because they're magnificent monuments, cathedrals to our desire to pass knowledge on to the next generation. And so if I get a chance to just look at a university, I like to just go look at it. It's just magnificent old buildings and the Ivy League schools and other schools are just magnificent to look at. Lawrence had this nice uniform architectural design, all the same sandstone. It looked like sandstone to me. It was just a beautiful visit there yesterday on our way here. You were all accomplished poets, I assume. We had breakfast with Wilda and Judy this morning. Have you published poems as well, Peter?
Oh, yes.
And Paulette?
yes.
Yeah. Well, see, now I feel bad because I'm a fraud. I've published poems. I published translations.
That's as hard a job as there is.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because many people don't think so. Many people think that translation is a automatic.
One-to-one, yeah.
Yeah, you just plug it in and go. And that's not what happens at all. Especially with Korean, I can tell you that the sentence order is reversed from the sentence order in English. English is a SVO language. That's a subject, verb, object language. Whereas Korean is an SOV language. So you don't get the verb till the end. You don't know what's happened till you get to the end of the sentence. You can't translate. And if you're doing side-by-side translation, it's maddening because you don't know where you're going till you get to the end. And then you've got to go back and reconstruct and put that sentence in the beginning, that verb in the beginning.
Could you repeat the initials for the reverse?
SVO is subject, verb, object.
Okay.
Subject, object, verb. Yeah. That's a little bit of linguistics.
I had a kid that used to say, "A snowball fight they're having."
Yeah. That sounds Germanic, doesn't it? The German is SV, SOV. German is with the verb at the end. So, Peter, have you done some translations?
In college, in Latin to English, yes, but that's about it.
Okay. Have any of the rest of you done any translations?
No.
From any language at all?
No.
Korean is a beast. My latest YouTube video is an interview I did with a colleague by the name of Ross King, who's a really outstanding scholar, professor at UBC, University of British Columbia. He was born in Eau Claire, raised in Eau Claire. And then as a child, his parents sent him off to Concordia language camps. And he studied French and German and Spanish and one other language. And it launched him on a career to become a linguist. And he graduated from Yale and did a PhD from Harvard. And he was saying in the video that I just posted last Saturday, he was saying that one of his motivations to study Korean was in one of his language camps, Russian, that's the other language he studied, Russian. His Russian teacher, he found out in a break time one time, out of class time, that his instructor had studied Korean at the DLI. You know the DLI, the Defense Language Institute. It's the American Army Military Language Training Center in Monterey, California. And here he's teaching Russian, but he knew Korean. And this fellow said to the young students, "You think Russian grammar is hard. You ought to see Korean." And my friend Ross King said that was throwing down the gauntlet.
Yeah.
And he decided that, yeah, okay, I'll try that. But Ross is proficient in multiple languages. You know, linguists are pathetic souls because people don't understand them. They don't understand the linguistics. You can major in linguistics and not speak a foreign language at all. You know, you just know the science of language is what linguistics is. And so if someone says they're a linguist, you say, oh, how many languages do you speak? Well, none is a possible answer. But in the case of Ross King, it's 7 or 8. He's really, really a remarkable scholar. Anyway, he studied Korean because the gauntlet was thrown down. It's a difficult language. Before we launch, I'm going to tell you a story. This is one of my favorite stories. I've recorded it on a couple of my videos. But this is how, why I'm in love with Sijo. Several years ago, geez, more than 20, I was tasked to be a evaluator, a accreditor on an accreditation team. When I talk to Korean audiences, they don't understand this because in America, accreditation of a university or any other school, accreditation is done by a private agency. It's not done by the government. The government does some minimal standards as to what a school is, but a school's accreditation is done by a private agency. And there are several of them, they're regional. And in the West, where I live, it's the Western College Accreditation Association, WCAA, something like that. And they contacted me one time and said, we'd like you to go to San Francisco. There's a small school that has started up. It's based in a community center, a Korean community center, but they started teaching English and they started teaching Korean. And one of their students, lo and behold, got into Harvard, so they think they're doing a good job and they want to be accredited. So we'd like you to go and you know, formal accreditation. Well, formal accreditation is a big deal. They have to prepare folders on budget, curriculum, facilities, faculty, students, and they prepare these huge folders for each of these things, and it's a 3-day process at minimum. So we went into this little podunk school, 3 of us, me to do the Korean, a woman from Cal State, something or other, to do English, and a president of a small college to do the administrative. He was president of Menlo College, which is a spin-off of Stanford in Menlo Park, California. So the 3 of us go in to do this evaluation. Everyone else is Korean American. And the first night we went to a banquet. We were in a big banquet hall like this, and a big banquet table. And you know how banquets are noisy? And we're going along, and sitting across from me is one of the investors in the school. He's a businessman. He was a bus guy. He owned buses and made money and contributed money to the school. And he's a kind of hardcore Republican, you know, businessman, staring me down. And he says, what are you doing here? Because everyone else is Korean American. And I said, well, I'm on the accreditation team. He didn't quite understand it. And I said, you know, we're here to accredit the school. What are your qualifications? And I said, well, I teach Korean at BYU. He said, oh, you teach Korean? What do you teach? And I said, history and literature. Literature? What do you know of our literature? And I said, well, I know Hyanga and Changa and Sijo. And he said, oh, Sijo, do you know Sijo? And I don't know how I had done it, but I had a Sijo in my head. And it was a Sijo that was created factually or apocryphally by a man who refused to join the new dynasty when there was a change of dynasty. He's going to be loyal to the old dynasty. And if you're asked to join a coup and you refuse, you're signing your own death penalty. You know, you're going to die. And he knew that. So he responded in a poem, in a Sijo, and he said, and this guy is kind of challenged me. So I said, we're speaking in Korean, and I said, "Imomi chugo chugo hepe onkocho chugo pekori chinto deo noshirado ipo nim 향한 일편단 심이야 가시줄이 수리야." If you've been in a noisy restaurant or cocktail reception, noisy room, and something happens, someone walks in or something happens, and it turns quiet in this corner, and then a quiet ripples through the room, you know what I mean? That's what had happened. Halfway through this poem, I realized I was the only one speaking. And I went on and finished the poem. Well, the English professor said, "Well, can you do it in English?" I said, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Though I die, and die again, though I die 100 deaths, after my bones have turned to dust, whether my soul lives on or not, my red heart, forever loyal to my king, will never fade away." And the English professor gasped. I could hear her gasp. She knew a poem when she heard one. In English, we say when something dramatic happens, we say it sucked the oxygen out of the room. That poem sucked the oxygen out of the room. In Korean, they say "kiga makyo." "Kiga makyo" means my breathing is blocked. I can't breathe.
Interesting.
And this English professor went, and at that moment, the way that poem had taken over this noisy restaurant, it told me something. It told me of the power of poetry. It told me of the power of Sijo. And thereafter, I became much more interested in Sijo. I'm grateful that somehow it was in my head. You know, if it hadn't been in my head, I wouldn't have been able to do that. If he'd have said, "Oh, do you know Sijo?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I've got a book here, and I'll read you one," that wouldn't have worked.
So Mark, they have a handout, so it's on the second page. It's like 3 and
Yeah,
4.
I think you read that to us yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
I think so.
It's
It's
one of
wonderful.
the Korean Sijo, and the historic setting of it. I've written articles on using Sijo and other literature in teaching history, and how poetry can be illustrative of, you know, different events along the way. So that's a confession of why I'm infected with the Sijo bug. And I've since seen, you know, marvelous indications of Sijo, including working with this young woman on grading on, what do you call it, the judging Sijo for the Sijo contest every year. And judging Sijo, I don't know how many of you have been on committees to judge poetry. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, because, you know, some poems you immediately discard as sort of unworthy, and, you know, don't waste your breath on this one. And then there are other poems that just smack you right in the face. That this is a winner, first or second or third or something. And then there are others that with the committee you haggle and negotiate, fight. You've got to take this poem. Look at this, you know, it's wonderful. Why didn't you see this? So our interpretive skills of the, you know, value of poems is really an interesting experience as well. Well, that's my background on getting involved with Sijo. I'm really grateful for this young woman here, who she does marvelous things. I don't know if you know about the Sejong Cultural Society.
Yeah,
But-
I did an introduction.
There's a committee of people and all of this, but a famous man once said, an institution is but the length and shadow of one person.
That's a nice quote.
Yeah.
Do you know who that was?
I want to say it was Norman Vincent Peale or someone like that.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Length and shadow, they might come to me. It was a...
Oh, we can Google it.
Yeah, it's a famous quotation indeed. But no, Lucy has a committee that helps her and gives her ideas and all sorts of things. But you know, she's a semi-retired. You're not fully retired yet, are you? You're still teaching medical.
80%.
80% retired. But she's a pediatric immunologist, endocrinologist,
Allergist.
allergist,
Allergy.
allergy immunology, pediatric area. And that's what she does for a living. And she comes into this poetry with music. She does a music contest at the Sijo Cultural Society as well. But I'm grateful that she pulled me in to work with her. And we've done a lot of fun things together, mostly online. If you all want to join the online training session on Sijo poetry, you'll hear a lot of the same stuff again, but if you want to review, you can do so without paying $1,000 if you want. So it'll be available, you can find out about that. Well, okay, that's background, and again, I'm honored to speak in front of poets, real honest to goodness poets, and to introduce you to, or reintroduce you to a fun form, the Sijo. Let's see, so that's my website there. And what's this? This is, we're going to start off by looking at translation. And I'm going to whine and moan at you. I'm going to kvetch. I learned the word kvetch. I'm going to kvetch about the difficulties of translation. And in the process do exactly what Peter just said, is that it's not only difficult, it's a creative process. It's as creative as an original writing. And translators left and right are shortchanged on the creativity aspect of it, but it's a creative process. And what I want to show you is fixing a translation of Sijo and how that might help you to critique your own Sijo. And one creative thing that you all can do, I don't know if you're planning on doing this, but you might critique each other's in this format as you go along. I don't know if you like sharing your stuff with others, but you might circulate your own Sijo among your colleagues here and see what your colleagues would suggest to improve it. So that's the idea. It's the idea of critiquing and helping to make a poem better, whatever that means. So we're going to be looking at critiquing and looking at poetry, translation. And we're going to start with this poem. Now, this poem comes from the Wikipedia website on Sijo. And here it's presented as one of a number of Sijo as examples. The Sijo website has 6 or 8 examples of different Sijo, and this is one of them. Now, how does this strike you? You studied Sijo for a day, or maybe before. How does this strike you? My first...
5 lines.
Yeah, 5 lines. Yobaseo. Yobaseo screams for, hey, look here. That ain't right. There's something wrong here. You don't have a Sijo with 5 lines. Now, you can have a Sijo with 6, but 6 is really double 3. Sijo is a 3-line poem, period. And if you see a 6-line Sijo, you're just splitting the lines. It's a 3-line poem. It's not a 6-line poem. But it'll be presented in 6 lines in English sometimes because the lines tend to be long. And to go 6 lines fits the page better. You know, in graduate school, my advisor in the Korean literature area is a guy by the name of Marshall Field. And he one time said, poetry is performance. And that's absolutely true. Poetry should be performed. though I die and die again. As I was performing that just now, that had an impact, didn't it? Because poetry is performance. But poetry also performs on the page. Because when you see the poem, it's not, a poem is not prose. It looks like a poem. It's performing on the written page. So this poem is not performing correctly. It's got 5 lines and Yoboseo. Hey, there's something wrong with this. So what's wrong? What's wrong? This poem, let's do it. Where let me load it up here so I can look at while I read this. Let's see. Let me get here we are. I want to look at okay. Where pure snowflakes melt, dark clouds gather threatening. Where are the spring flowers abloom? A lonely figure lost in the shadow of sinking sun. I have no place to go. That's a nice poem in and of itself. You know, it's problematic as far as calling it the Sijo, but that's a nice poem. And you see, it was written by E. Sek. You know, Koreans all have 3-syllable names except for a few that only have 2 syllables. And this is a fellow who had an unusual 2-syllable name, E. Sek. He's a famous guy. He was one who didn't want to support the new dynasty again. But unlike Chung Hong-ju, who gave up his life because he didn't want to support the new dynasty, this guy is just, I'm not sure where to go. I'm like a man standing at the setting sun. The setting sun is the old dynasty, you see. And which way am I to go? Am I going to support this new dynasty? When the sun comes up again, am I going to be alive? Or, you know, where am I to go? And so that's the context of this poem. So let's figure out what's wrong with it, because something ain't right. And here I just want to emphasize the structure of the poem, that poems have structure, sometimes less structure than others, sometimes it has rhyming structure, but it doesn't have to have rhyming structure. Korean poems, Sijo, do not have rhyme. You can have internal rhyme, you can have internal assonance and alliteration going on, but you don't have sentence-ending rhyme. There once was a man from Nantucket who kept all of his cash in a bucket. His daughter named Nan ran away with a man, and as for the bucket, Nantucket. Say, there's something wrong with the structure of this. Right? You just don't write it that way. Yeah, there's something wrong with this. And why? What's wrong? Well, a limerick is an AABBA rhyme structure, right? And the BB are short lines, and the AAA are longer lines, and so it has a structure. Have you been to Nantucket?
Yeah.
Did you buy the T-shirt or something? You go there and everything, this is written all over the place. This poem is so identified with Nantucket that you can buy the T-shirt that has the poem on it, you can buy a hat that has the poem on it, you can buy a coffee mug that has the poem on it. Everybody talks about the man from Nantucket in Nantucket.
There are other ones that are not printable as well.
Well, that's the problem with limericks, isn't it? They go off into the dirty field quite easily. Don't make me laugh. I'm thinking of some of these funny limericks that are out there. And it's funny how different genre will capture emotions. The limerick doesn't have to be funny, but certainly they've captured that field of emotion, haven't they? But you know, beyond that, for this poem, it's so dang funny. You know, it's so clever. You know, Nantucket. You know, just the sound of the word makes you want to see Nan took what. You know, and while you generate this story of the cash in the bucket, and all this stuff. So it's just a masterpiece. Well, here's the Sijo page. Oh, I gotta advance this one. You gotta realize it's all on the same page. Here we go. Here's the Sijo page from Wikipedia. And you go down, and it has a bunch of examples here. Yeah. And there it is on the top of this is taking the thing down in segments. And there it is on the top there, where pure snowflakes melt. I was looking at this, and I prepared an alternative PowerPoint, but we've got this one all set up, so I won't do that. But I'll just mention it to you. The poem on the bottom here, I will break the back of this long midwinter night, folding it double, cold beneath my spring quilt, that I may draw out the night, should my love return. This is a real classic Sijo. The idea of a midwinter night. Midwinter nights are the longest of all the nights. And on a lonely midwinter night when your lover's not there, you'd like to roll up and save this night for a short summer night when your lover returns. Have a long night when your love returns. This is a classic poem. The reason I mention this here is in this same Sijo page, Wikipedia page, it quotes this exact poem twice without realizing it. I think different editors jumped in and did things. And it has another translation that's just awful. Same poem, same author, the translation is just awful. Well, we're going to focus in on this Where Pure Snowflake, this Esek poem, and see what we can get out of this. Let's see what's wrong with it. So here's the poem, and we've got to figure out why it's 5 lines instead of 6. What's going on? And here's the Korean. You see, so in the Korean it's very clearly 3 lines, and in the Korean you can very clearly see the rhythm breaks. You see how the syllables are all clustered in 3s and 4s. Basically 3s and 4s. There's a 5 in there once in a while. Well, let's count it. It's 3, 5, 3, 4. That first line, the syllables. Sometimes when people are new to Sijo, they don't get the syllable count business. How a syllable is separate from a word. A word is a word, a syllable is a syllable. And syllables. Some words have 3 syllables. But you've got to have a sense for the syllable rhythm to do Sijo. So the second line is 3, 3, 4, 4. That's right. And then the third line is 3. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then 4, 3. Now you've been taught already yesterday that the Sijo is 3 or 4, 3 or 4, 3 or 4. Some people are a little more strict about it. They say it should be 4s instead of 3s. But the twist is on the third line. The third line always has to have 3 to start out. Da da da. Da. The rhythm is 3. 1, 2, 3. And then the rhythm goes to 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. It bursts out. And then it comes back to the rhythm we're used to, the 3 or 4. And so here's the structure of the thing. It's a good Sijo. That first line has a 5 in it, which is a little odd, but acceptable. We can accept the 5, and once in a while even a 2. But usually it's 3s and 4s, 3s and 4s, 3s and 4s. Then the last line is 3. It's 3. And then it's 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. Though I die, and die again, though I die 100 deaths, after my bones have turned to dust, whether my soul exists or not, my red heart, forever loyal to my king, will never fade away. See how the rhythm goes?
Mm-hmm.
So there's the Korean. It works in Korean. Now, what have we done here? So here's the 5-line countered against the 3-line. And let's get into it and see if we can find out where the problem is. Here's the 5-line counter displayed against the 6-line. And let's parse these out here and see if we can find out where our problem is. And the Korean says, white snow, having found a mountain valley or in a mountain valley, and then clouds gather, okay, then glad plum blossoms in what place are blooming? Question mark. Soyeongye in the sunset, alone standing, to go where not know what to do. So that's a literal translation of it. So where's our problem? Where's our short line? Well, it turns out it's that second line. The first and the last come out as 2 each, but that middle line comes out as just 1, and that needs to be 2. So that's where our problem is. Just as a cultural footnote, the plum blossoms are a great cultural symbol in Korea, because the plum blossom blooms first in late winter, and plum blossoms will often blossom in the snow, which is, there's something unusual about this, right? Because blossoms blossom in the spring when the snow melts. That's when they blossom. But these plum blossoms, tenacious little bounders, they come out, and the artist captures this all the time, of the plum blossom in the snow. I have seen dozens of paintings of plum blossoms with snow crusted on the top of them. So this idea of the plum blossom has great cultural significance of it. This harbinger of what's to come, this brave venturer that steps out too early, really, and can get frostbitten. But there the plum blossom is. And so there's this imagery of the plum blossom that he's making reference to here. So that's the breakdown of it. So what have I done here? I've turned this awkward translation, this word-by-word translation, white snow having found mountain valleys, clouds gather, into clouds gather in the valley where white snow had found a home. Where can we find the plum blossoms that are always the first to bloom? Now that was a bit of interpretation that I threw in there because that's the knowing the plum blossom, to get more syllable count to fill in that line. Alone I stand. Now, dang it. This 3-line ending, this three beat on the 3rd line is a difficult thing, and sometimes we cheat. I cheated here. I cheated on the Chungmongju, the though I die and die again. I cheated on that one because the third line on the Chungmongju poem is Nim Hyang Han. Toward my Lord is what it says. But what did my translation say? My red heart. Boom, boom, boom. Because I like the effect of the red heart. But in the original it says, toward my Lord, 일편 단심이야. 일편 단심이야. Now that, the beauty of the language. 일편 단심이야. It's a strange expression. Il means one. Pyeon means a slice or a piece, a little bit of something. Il pyeon, tan is red, shim is heart. So instead of saying heart or red heart, it says this little bit of a red heart. So my tiny little heart is going to be loyal to my Lord, though I'm dead, though my bones turn to dust, whether I exist or not. And whether I exist or not, you know, these poems have such layers of meaning to them. Whether I exist or not, well, what's this Korean talking about? Whether I exist or not. After I'm dead, whether I exist or not. What's he talking about? He's referencing Buddhism and reincarnation. And he's a Confucian scholar. He's not a Buddhist. But he's throwing this Buddhism out here, saying whether there is really incarnation or not. You know, whether I'm reincarnated or not. You know, whether I exist in transmigration of the soul or not. I don't know about that stuff because I'm a Confucian. And you Buddhists can talk about that all you want, but I don't know about that. You see? But whether my soul lives on or not, for my Lord, this little piece of a red heart will never fade away. Oh, it's just breathtaking. This idea of a heart, which means loyalty, right? I will be loyal long after I'm dead. And you know, it's true. There isn't a single school child in Korea that does not know that poem. Chung Mong-ju's heart is alive in Korea today. So, this third, I went off on the tangent because I said, my red heart, rather than saying, for my Lord. And either translation is fine, but here's, Peter, this is the interpretive part. You know, what are you going to do? So here, same thing. Alone I stand in the setting sun. The Korean says the setting sun. And how do you say in the setting sun in 3 syllables? At sunset. Boom, 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 you can do that. But I cheated. I thought, oh, I really cheated. Alone I stand. Alone I stand is 4 syllables. Should be lone I stand. You can do that. You can apostrophize. You can contract words. Lone I stand. See, there's your 3 beats. Lone I stand. Or setting sun. In the setting sun. As sunsets, I stand alone in the shadows, not knowing which way to go. Okay, so we pounded it out a bit, and we found where the shortfall is, and we've made it into a real 3-line, expressed as 6-line, legitimate Sijo. And I've talked about how that first 3 beats of the 3rd line is important. Okay, so here it is then, with the poorly structured one at the top and the better structured one at the bottom. So that gives you an idea of how you can get to some things by, you know, pounding at it. I don't know. You poets, you pound your poetry.
Sent this translation to Wikipedia to correct their page.
I'm mad at those folks. Oh, jeez. I wrote the first Sijo entry for Wikipedia. And some idiots came along and replaced it. So I'm sort of ticked off at them. You know, I had a perfect thing on Sijo out there. The idiots are organized. There's a group of nationalistic kids. They're young people who've organized a group called Bank, B-A-N-K, and it's something, something, something for Korea, telling the truth about Korea. And these young zealots are going to tell the truth about Korea. And what they've done is they've jumped into Wikipedia and other things, and where they see something they don't like, they're going to correct it, fix it. Well, sometimes they fix things badly.
Well, the irony is that the statement just ahead of that 5-line translation says Sijo is a 6-line,
Yeah,
a 3-line poem.
yeah, exactly. It's right there. Yeah. That's pure irony. You can't get any better than that.
Well, that's both the beauty and the curse of Wikipedia. Anybody can
Yeah.
wade in there
Yeah.
and fool around with it.
Yeah, and it was really bad early on. It's gotten a lot better, but I shouldn't be aggravated with them. I should jump in. Wilda, you're right. I shouldn't be. Well, I haven't corrected it for one reason, because it gives me something to kvetch about.
There's a lot of value right in. Well, look at the lesson we got with the kvetching that we managed to absorb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's
So I
a,
tried to teach you by kvetching. Is that a good way to do things?
oh, kvetch technique. How many of us have had kvetching critics in our groups?
Oh,
A lot.
Yeah. Okay, so Wilda, should I go correct it, or should I continue kvetching?
well, for
It's
the
a good one.
benefit of readers who really want to learn, it might be good to have the correct
Oh,
translation there.
you're such a sweet person. Thank you.
Or even add an alternative, structurally appropriate
Yeah.
translation.
Well, in that same Sijo article, if you read it carefully, you read it carefully, because I don't know if you caught this,
I just read it on the screen here.
oh, just now? As I just mentioned, there's one poem that's translated 2 different ways in the same article. And you know, if that isn't sloppy editing, I don't know what is. But the same poem, 2 different translations. One translation is really good, and one is really, 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 really poor. So, okay, well, we've pounded that one to death. Here's the next one. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, you have the handout I sent last night from his slides.
Now, I can't print it here, but
Oh, yeah.
I did get it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So here's another poem. I don't know where I got this one, but this is in the this is in the category of kvetching. Some more. I guess that's the point of my lesson today. You know, correcting and editing and kvetching. Oh, that I might capture the essence of this midwinter night, and fold it softly into the waft of my spring moon quilt. Then fondly uncoil it the night my beloved returns. That's not bad. The poem, you know, you get the meaning of the poem. Structurally, it's not very satisfying because it's long line, middle line, short line. And if anything, the 3rd line should be longer. As oh that I might capture the essence, that's 5, of this deep midwinter night. So structurally it's okay by syllable count. And fold it softly, 5, into the waft of a spring moon quilt. It's not exact, but it's not bad. Then fondly, that's not bad for a three syllable hit on the 3rd line. Then fondly uncoil it the night my beloved returns. And that's a little bit short on the end.
So it's in the Korean Sijo Masters number 8.
Okay.
This is a famous Korean poem. Here's a good example of a bad poem. Do you ever have bad poetry nights? where you just really awful poems. This top one is a good example for bad poetry night. In the 12th month, taking half of the night, the spring breeze blew round and round beneath my bedding. On the night the unwed came spread out at every turn. It's just complete nonsense. But I pulled this off of the internet somewhere. Someone really tried to do this. But here's a better version. I will cut this long midwinter night in half at its waist, and roll it, and tuck it under my summer quilt. So that I might unfold it when my love returns to lengthen out the night. So there's an example of a really, really bad poem and a quite good poem that are really the same poem, but translated well or translated poorly. The spring breeze, the second line of the first one, the spring breeze blew round and round beneath my bedding. The person that translated had no idea what the thing says. It says, I'll take this midwinter night and cut it at the waist and roll it and tuck it under my summer quilt, so I can pull it out again on summer night when lover returns. And this roll it, he understood as the wind blowing, blowing beneath the bedding. It makes no sense at all. Just a complete mistranslation. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, here is another famous Korean poem. What I'm trying to do here is to tighten it up a bit. The first one is a decent translation, but the second one, I really like, when you take a 6-line alternative, I really like to indent the second, fourth, and sixth line to show that it's really a 3-line poem. Visually, the performance on the page, I think, is much better if you honor and recognize the idea that it's a 3-line poem, even if it's expressed in 6 lines. That's one thing I was trying to say on this example here. The other thing, you see, the first 2 lines are the same. The third line, I tried to capture that 3 beat at the beginning of the third line. Why must I forsake? Must I forsake? You see, why must I, boom, 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 forsake my lifelong love of nature's rocks and ageless springs? So I'm making a correction, an improvement to get the 3 beats on the third line. And that's a game you can play, as you're making your poem, to find that 3-beat intro to the third line. Now, this is an artificial contrivance for y'all as English speakers, because the rhythm of the poem, I don't know if it quite works in English the way it does in Korean, you see. And so to capture the rhythm is a little bit of an artificial contrivance, but nonetheless, the third line, boom, 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 to start it off with 3 beats is important, and then you run it out to the 5 beats, which the 5 beats to 8 beats is a little bit unusual. My red heart, forever loyal to my king. You see, it's 3 beats to start it out, and then you run it out, and then you finish it up. Will never fade away. Why must I forsake my lifelong love of nature's rocks and ageless springs? So I guess that's the thing I'm trying to emphasize here, is that third line. Here's another one. I don't want to stress the translation aspect too much, because you're not working in translation, you're working in original composition. But one thing I was trying to do here is to show Yeah, you don't need to know this, but since I've done it, I'll mention it anyway. It's Korean is a diglossic language. There's a word for you poets. Have you used diglossic in a poem yet?
Could you spell it?
Well, it's just the way it sounds. Diglossic. 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 Korean is a diglossic language. Do you know any other languages diglossic? Yes, English. English is diglossic. What are we talking about? What does diglossia mean? What is diglossia? It means it means the language has two strains, two roots to it. English is an Anglo-Saxon language loaded with Latin and Greek terminology, right? I went to the doctor one time. I had a growth on my back. It was kind of a boil or a carbuncle or something. It was a painful, festering growth on my back, and I had the doctor, it was like a big zit that wouldn't pop. And I had the doctor lance it, and of course by regulation, if you take any tissue, you have to send it to the lab to have it analyzed. And so I was waiting for the response of what the doctor would say, and the lab technician or the nurse or somebody called in a few days and said, "Oh, it's just necrotic tissue." I paid him $125 so he could speak Latin to me. What's necrotic tissue?
Dead.
Yeah, it's dead cells. It was a zit. It was nothing, it was nothing. But I paid $125 so the doctor could speak Latin.
You got a deal.
What's that?
You got a deal?
Yeah.
I used to work for a dermatologist. That's really cheap if you paid $125. Yeah.
I don't know how much I paid.
Your insurance probably paid $1,000 and you
Insurance,
probably paid
yeah.
$125.
No, you billed 1,000, the insurance paid 200, and you got a bill for the balance.
Yeah.
So, anyway, you get the point that,
Yeah.
the doctor's speaking Latin to you, because we live in a diglossic language. Korean is also diglossic. And the two strains are pure Korean, like we have pure Anglo-Saxon, and Chinese. They have Chinese that functions the way Latin functions in our language. And it's a parallel situation. It's very, very analogous, because the technical words in Korean tend to be the Chinese words. And if you went to the doctor in Korean, they tell you the technical response would be the Chinese terminology. And so you can understand it, they repeat it in Korean terminology.
But pronouns in Korean way. So we read Chinese character differently. Chinese, we don't pronounce like Chinese.
Yeah, different pronunciation. Yeah. So the point I'm getting at is this first version, I put the Chinese characters in parentheses for the Sino-Korean words.
You're on the wrong slide.
Oh, move ahead. There we go. You see the Chinese characters there? Do you recognize Chinese characters as opposed to the Korean? Is this clicking with you? Or is this not clicking?
Everything is.
The
There is a pointer.
the Chinese looks much more complicated.
Oh,
You see?
okay.
This is Chinese. And the Korean is these right angles and circles and squares.
So this is pointer.
They're working? Oh, there it goes. Okay. Okay, so you see, you see the Chinese. And it's in parentheses because the Korean pronunciation precedes the parentheses. And so, I guess I'm just convention to convention. The Korean is a difficult language because of its diglossic structure. And Koreans will very often say, you can say anything in Korean in two different ways. You can either say it Korean or you can say it Chinese, Korean pronunciation, Chinese. And English is much the same way. You can say you've got some dead tissue, or you can say you've got some necrotic tissue. And there are a lot of expressions that we can go either Anglo-Saxon or Latin Greek, right? And I guess, I don't know, maybe as writers of poetry, maybe that's useful for you to think, you know, which part of my diglossia am I going to tap for this expression? And I don't know. They say that the Koreans and the Japanese are smart people and educated well, and the curse of diglossia has made them study more and has made them smarter because they have to deal with two languages in their head. Whereas Chinese don't. Chinese is just Chinese. And I'm not sure how many monoglossic languages, is that a word? I don't know, I've never heard that word.
One would expect to hear that.
Yeah. If you have diglossia, you should have monoglossia, I suppose.
And multiglossia,
Multiglossia.
which is what English is becoming.
Yeah. Yeah, even more so these days. Yeah. Well, anyway, this poem starts off with a Korean, and then the translation comes, fragrant orchids in the valley lend enchantment to the air. Those puffy clouds over the mountains are also delightful. Amid pleasures such as these, I still long for my dear one. Okay, is that a nice poem?
It's really sweet.
Yeah. Sweet is right, you know, the enchantment, the fragrance, orchid, all of that.
Yeah, nice images.
Yeah.
So I guess if the author of the Korean Sijo used only pure Korean, it wouldn't fit into 45 syllables. So he used, he or she used the Chinese character to reduce the syllable count.
Yeah.
Oh,
And you do that with English diglossia too. The word choice. I guess the issue in simple terms, in writers' language, is word choice. And as you're looking for word choice in Korean, it's critical to have word choice of the right beat, the right measure, the right syllable count. And sometimes to get the right syllable count, you have to switch to the other side of your diglossia, either going to or from Latin, I guess. And Peter, you've translated Latin, you say, so you have a good feel for diglossia, perhaps.
and yeah, the headaches it invokes. Because, well, the same is true in Latin. The verb is at the end most of the time.
Oh, yeah.
And that,
And the conjugation happens on the verb,
yes,
which drives you nuts.
yes. So it's,
Yeah. Well, let's play with this one for a minute. Fragrant orchids in the valley lend enchantment to the air. That's one we just read. And here's my ultimate translation. I'm really not sure that my translation is better, because this translation is not bad. But let's see what I've done. The orchids hiding in the canyons can almost be heard. Patches of snow, not yet melted, on the hills are faintly seen. Yet my love, a beauty that surpasses them all, is even harder to forget. I think what I'm doing with this is the Korean has some obvious parallelism, and the first translation did not capture the parallelism. And I'm saying there's some parallelism here that's worthy of capturing. And you know, as you translate or as you write poetry, you're using all sorts of different devices. And one of them is parallelism. And parallel structures can sometimes be very forceful, you know, because they hammer the point quite well. And
The 3-syllable beginning in the third line is much more powerful in your translation than whatever's going on up there.
that's right. That's another thing I tried to do, is to hit the three syllable count there. The thing about the Korean that the first translation misses is it says fragrant orchids in the valley lend enchantment to the air. That's very nice. It's very poetic and it's a good expression, but it's not as true to the original. Now, dang it, that's the problem. There's an expression in translation that translation is like a woman. This is a really sexist thing, but it's illustrative. Beautiful ones are not faithful. Faithful ones are not beautiful.
That's,
Now, is that an awful thing to say?
Yes.
might better not put that on the net.
I'm not gonna put that in my notebook either for you to remember.
Well, the point is about translation, being faithful. And as a wannabe serious translator, I have found, as I translate something, I think, oh, I should be more liberal with this. I should say the enchantment lends enchantment to the air. Ah, that's a beautiful expression. Lends enchantment to the air. And then I go back and I look at it again. I don't know what it says. You know, what the original says is the orchids hiding in the canyons can almost be heard. Now, what's going on? Patches of snow not yet melted on the hills are faintly seen. We're capturing these senses, what you hear and what you see. And can you hear orchids? You can't hear orchids. But as they're hiding, you know, okay, have any of you ever gone orchid hunting? Have you? Where?
At the ridges up here.
Oh,
There's a
Yeah,
sanctuary
there's a
in the
sanctuary,
county
and there's some
that's,
very rare orchids there.
and you can hunt them.
They
you
have
can look
tours.
for them.
You can look for
You
them.
Yeah,
cannot touch them.
You go with someone who knows.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who will
This
whack your
afternoon-
knuckles, yeah.
This afternoon, the orchid finding.
Oh, Yeah.
In Korea, finding orchids is like hunting deer or pheasant or something. You go and hunt them, you can harvest them if you find them. And you take them home, raise them, and have
Oh,
beautiful orchids at
Okay,
home.
so you can dig them up. I
Yeah.
thought that was just, put them in a vase and wait
No,
for
you
them.
dig them up and raise them at home.
Ah,
You get
Orchid
arrested
hunting.
for that in the ridges.
yeah, you
Oh,
would.
that's-
You get arrested for that in
Yeah.
the ridges.
Yeah,
that's big bad.
yeah. Oh, that's really.
Well, they're rare here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the
Some
point
of
is, orchids can be found. And, as a kid, I would want to buy an orchid to go to the junior prom, give to my date, and have a nice orchid. And I had no idea how they grow in the wild and all this, but I went to Korea and find out that a friend of mine there is an orchid hunter, and on a certain spring day, you can go out and you can find the orchids that are in the wild.
Wow.
So the orchids hiding in the canyon, see? And as you go hunting for them, you don't hear them, but you sort of, you find them in a very subtle sort of way. You sneak up on them and catch them. It's almost like they're wild game,
Uh-huh.
So the orchids can almost be heard. Patches of snow not yet melted on the hills are faintly seen. Yet my love of beauty, stress, and all is even harder to forget. Okay, now, I've done something with this that is maybe better, maybe not. I thought if it can almost be heard, it's almost audible. And if it can almost be seen, it's almost visible. And if you can't forget them, it's unforgettable. So I played with the audible, visible, forgettable, unforgettable style. Now, I don't know, is this an improvement or not?
Well, one of the things that we get hammered with all the time is that in English poetry, action and active verbs are far preferable to those passive voices
Oh, yeah.
that are there. And that diminishes it to me and my ear.
Mhm. Yeah, you know, I did this thinking audible, visible is a better way to do it, but after I did it, I didn't like it. So, I don't know. Just put that out there for you to,
I think appealing to the senses, though, is really a good thing,
Oh, yes.
when you can do that.
yeah.
And I don't have a problem with the orchids being audible.
I don't either.
No, it's, there's an orchid out there calling to me, and I'm going to find it.
Yeah.
That is not the least bit problematic.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to work into this translation because the original didn't have it. The original says, fragrant orchids in the valley lend enchantment to the air. And the Korean says, no, you can almost hear them. And so it's that thing that you're talking about where it's figurative.
Yes, and
In
that's,
haiku, it's not too uncommon to trade the senses, where you're hearing something to be seen or you're.
Yeah.
oh, yes.
So it's a sensatory thing that we're dealing with.
There's a name for that, but I don't remember what it is.
Paulette?
I think this might be what Peter is saying too. I guess for me, the question has to do with the last phrase of the third line. I still long for my dear one, versus is even more unforgettable. So in the first one, it feels like there's such a pull. Longing is a powerful pull verb to me, I guess. So I guess maybe something pulling, yet my love of beauty that surpasses them all still pulls me, or something. Do you understand what my question is?
I do.
That to me was the biggest distinction.
Yeah.
I love the sensory. I mean, I love what you did. I just wonder if it needs more.
Yeah, this is an unfinished piece. I'm
Yeah, it's
still
beautiful.
wrestling with this thing, but there's something really nice about it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something that's really missed in the first translation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a quote from a famous poet that a poem is never finished, it's only abandoned.
Right.
I haven't heard that one before. That's good.
That's really good. I think I've heard that somewhere along the line, but yeah, that's really good.
I can't remember who said it, but you could Google it and find it.
We got so many things to Google. How are we doing on time? I'm taking more time on this than I had anticipated.
It's so
Well, we're having fun. This is good.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know who you were when I came into this thing, and a good teacher always knows who his students are. And to find that you're all really serious poets has really been exhilarating, because I've been able to speak to you at a level. Well, you're at a level above me. I feel it really fun to speak up to you about
Oh,
this.
my goodness. Oh, are we going to be flattered or embarrassed?
Embarrassed, yeah. Embarrassed, definitely.
Well, I finished this part with some of my favorite Sijo that have come in to the contest. Have you shown them this one yet? Emma? Oh, I didn't advance this one yet, sorry. Emma? Have you seen Emma yet?
No, we didn't read it. It is in the handout.
Oh, it's in the
I
handout.
read it in the handout.
Yeah,
The
so
student-
she's
Emma, Peter, I need to read it for you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm blind, so if
Yeah,
you would read it,
yeah.
I would really appreciate that.
Okay, Emma, my new dog, little Emma, a gift to us from the heavens. My aunt passed, stupid cancer. My mom distraught, everyone muted. I could look into Emma's eyes, she's still here on four paws.
It's great.
This is a magnificent poem written by a guy by the name of, what's his name? Austin Snell. And he wrote this was first prize in the student division in our contest. Oh, maybe 2017, maybe 7, 8 years ago.
16 on one.
Is it there? Yeah, 2016, okay. Oh yeah, Austin Snell. And he is a student of Elizabeth Jorgensen, who's this magnificent high school teacher that teaches Sijo, and her kids win first or second or third or honorable mention every single year. And I asked Elizabeth one time how Austin's doing now. Did he go on? Is he majoring in literature in college, and has he become a famous poet? No, Austin was a boy in shop. He hated English class. He loved shop and fixing cars and hunting. He's a real boy's boy. And I said, well, Elizabeth, how'd you get him to write this poem? He said he couldn't write, he was just stuck. And I sat down with him and I said, you know, a poem is an emotion. What's going on right now with you? He said, well, at our home, Mom's upset because her sister died. And I said, well, write about that. And at the same time, they got this little puppy. And there's a little boy says, this aunt, I can see my aunt's eyes and the eyes of this puppy. And so they wrote it up. And it's just magnificent. And it's by a kid who, this is probably the first, last, and only poem he will ever write.
So it's in the handout, number 12.
But as a judge for these poems, you know, as I mentioned a moment ago, when you read 1,000 poems, actually, when we have 1,000, 1,200 entries. We divide them up into 400s each. So I only have to read 400. But you quickly get rid of the dross. But along the way, every now and again, when this one came up, zing, this is it. This is a zinger.
So
Well.
this Jorgensen tells our student, if Austin can win, you can do it. Because he's known to be not really literary or poetry proficient, and just playing, you know.
And I asked which college he went on to, and is he an English major? No, he didn't even go to college. You know, it's over. It's over and done. One and done. This is my favorite poem in the Wisconsin division. And I had hopes that Thomas Singleton would be here today. He's from right down here in Appleton. We drove through Appleton and saw Lawrence College on the way. But this is a fun poem. Seeker, consider the frog. The little green yogi sits for hours, motionless, unblinking, present, tongue ready to catch a fly. Be like him. Acquire patience, then feel free to spit out the fly. That's magnificent.
The little green yogi is, that's a good.
Yeah, that's a great expression, isn't it? Thomas Singleton has a website, and he's a guy that does haiku. And he just branched out to do Sijo. He wrote one other Sijo and this one, and that's it. I tried to get a hold of him, couldn't get a hold of him, and I want to jack him up to write more Sijo if I can, but he's a haiku a day guy. He does a haiku every day. So that's nice. Well,
In your handout, number 9, original English.
I think that's all on this. Yeah. Then there's a competition. You all should enter all of you except Wilda should enter the Wisconsin contest this coming year. To enter the Wisconsin contest, you have to live in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, why are you being mean to Wilda? But that makes sense now.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks a year wouldn't make it.
No, you're resident of Wisconsin, but we have no way of checking. But you have to say, yes, I'm a resident of Wisconsin. You better tell them to do not lie.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to go over haiku, and yeah, I think going over haiku might be worse than preaching to the choir. Have all of you written haiku? I know Wilda have, you have. One thing about haiku One thing I've got on my slides about haiku is that it has a, if you look up haiku on the internet, you very often find it associated with art. Either a beautiful picture or a drawing or a sketch or something like that. And the association of haiku and a visual presentation is very strong. We don't have that with Sijo. And I think that's a positive thing, in that I think the association of haiku with a visual image that's usually nature is an indication of the limitation of haiku. Now you can argue that you can break any limitation, and that's true, but the general presentation of haiku is associated with a visual, artistic presentation. And Sijo is not. And the conclusion I draw from that is that Sijo has a wider range of emotions that it deals with.
So instead of going over haiku, how about Korean Sijo masters?
Okay.
So they
You
have,
load
do you
that?
have the handout? So when Ivan원 정몽주's mother said, so would you like to?
Okay, we can do some of the masters.
Yeah, I know it was, so we
Yeah,
read some few things.
That takes us back to where we started with Chungmongju. Do you like my Chungmongju story, though I die in the restaurant?
You're dying in the restaurant? Okay, okay, I heard.
I think I'll write a Sijo about though I die and die
Suck
in
the
the
air
restaurant.
out of the room.
Yeah.
Oxygen.
But then it has to be My Poor Stomach or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. One of my students got an honorable mention, a student from 20 years ago, got an honorable mention in our contest recently by doing a parody of Though I Die and Die. I can't remember what he said, but Though I Die and Die can be replicated in a number of different ways. Though I read and read, I can't remember.
Okay.
Though I search and search, I cannot find. You know, there are all sorts of parodies. Parody we can talk about. Yeah, okay. Let's spend the rest of the time, just a few minutes, on some of these other masterpieces. Let me. The poem that I started with was Chungmongju and Though I Die and Die.
So that's one.
That poem was precipitated by the crown prince asking him to join the new dynasty. And see, remember Chungmongju's poem is, I'm not going to join your new dynasty. Though I die, I'll be loyal to the old dynasty. And he allegedly said at one point, there are not two suns in the heaven, there cannot be two kings on the throne. So I would rather die than support the new king. Well, there's some, maybe it's just historical cynicism that questions whether he actually wrote that poem. You know, if you're asked to join a dynasty, the last thing in the world you can do is sit down and write a poem. You know, you're thinking, am I going to live or die? You know, so equally apocryphal, I think, is the story of how the crown prince said, hey, join our new dynasty. And he said, hey, join our new dynasty by writing a poem. And this is the poem. Yeah, this is
So
the
it
poem
slapped him back.
to Chungmongju saying, hey, come along. And he says, what difference does it make? You know, it starts right off. Why are you being so fussy about this? You know, I mean, come on. You know, what difference does it make this way or that way? The tangled vines of Mansu Mountain in profusion grow entwined. The vines on Mansu Mountain. Mansu is a mountain in Kaesong. And Kaesong is where the capital of the Koryo dynasty was. Seoul is the capital of the Chosun dynasty, but the capital moved to Seoul. And in Kaesong, which is now in North Korea, Mansu Mountain is the key mountain there. And on that mountain, there are arrow roots. Have you seen an arrow root? You've seen orchids, I'm glad to see that. Do they have arrowroots around here? Arrowroots are hairy, fuzzy, viney root that comes above the ground. And it's very viney. It's fuzzy looking. It has a surface like the shell of a coconut. You know, these vines intertwined on top of it. So it's a very viney, intertwining, and then the whole vine itself will intertwine. So there's nothing that describes being mixed up with something better than the vines of the arrowroot, like on Mount Monsu over here. So he says, consider the tangled vines of Mount Monsu. We too could be like that and live together 100 years. So it's very tempting imagery here. You outside the royal family and we inside the royal family, we can be all jumbled together here like this. Be happy. Come on, vote for Trump. It's okay. Come along and vote for the devil. I mean, what does it matter this way or that way? Why are you all stuck on this loyalty business? And so he gives them this poem, and then Chang Mongju responds, though I die, and die again, though I die 100 deaths, after my bones have turned to dust, whether my soul exists or not, for my Lord. Okay, now see, I did my red heart here. For my Lord, no part of this red heart would ever change how quickly. When I was teaching, I would give this poem to translate. I'd give it to them in Korean, ask them to translate for every student every year. Every translation is different. There's enough variations in these 3 lines that every expression was different. And I can't remember if it was this poem or I think it was this one. One year I had one of these moments that a teacher has once in a career. And that is a student had given this poem such careful treatment and in such a unique and interesting way. Everybody knew the poem. Everybody had translated the poem. All the poems were sort of literal and exact. This one student did a translation that was just a little bit more insightful, a little bit different. And we had this rarest of moments in the classroom when as soon as he finished, the classroom sat there in dumb awe.
Ooh, that's nice.
And then one student started to applaud, and everybody applauded. It was a rare moment. You can't script it. You couldn't create it. But that happened one time, and that's apropos of seeing all the variations of translating this one poem. There's so many different ways you can look at it. Well, there's more to the story. There's more. Paul Harvey, the rest of the story. Allegedly, Chang Mongju's mother said, hey, don't get involved with the E boys, the E dynasty boys. They're stirring up trouble over here. Don't get involved with them, the mother says. And how does she say it? She says, white heron. Herons are white, right? You have beautiful white herons around here. They have beautiful white herons in Korea. White heron, do not venture into the valley where the crows fight. This E dynasty family. Stay away from those boys. The angry crows there will be jealous of your whiteness. I fear lest your clean-washed body will be stained black. Did she write this poem? Did any of these people write these poems, or did somebody apocryphally attach them to them afterward? I don't know. My cynical historicism says, be a cynic about this. I'm not sure. But if you go to the shrine dedicated to Chang Mongju, where he lived and taught, and there's a school and a worship shrine dedicated to him. Out in front of that shrine, there are 2 stone tablets. And on the 2 stone tablets are these 2 Sijo.
Oh, wow.
The mother saying, don't mess with these crows, you beautiful white heron boy of mine. And then his response, though I die and die again. So Sijo, or poetry, makes a statement in Korea, and it's in stone. It's on black stone, carved into black stone in front of this shrine. This one, I cannot think of this poem. I guess it's the last one. We have 2 minutes left. I cannot see this poem without thinking of David McCann. David McCann is the Sijo expert, retired from Harvard. My classmate there years ago, taught at Cornell and got to move to Harvard. Chung Chol is one of the most famous poets of Korea. He wrote Chinese poetry as well as Sijo. And he wrote this: a shadow strikes the water below, a monk passes by on the bridge. Stay a while, Reverend Sir. Let me ask you where you go. He just points his staff at the white clouds and keeps on his way without turning. This is an image of an event, a subtle, unimportant event, but here's a monk on his way, and this guy says, "Monk, where are you going?"
And it's the shadow that announces the monk.
Yeah, in the water. The shadow is in the water off the bridge. The monk passes over the bridge, and you can see his shadow in the water. So the imagery of this is just beautiful, and it's probably real. It has such a real feel about it. That this man is talking to the monk, and there is perhaps a Confucianism, Buddhism antagonism being expressed here, where the Chung Chol was a Confucian scholar. All of the aristocrats were Confucian scholars, and the monks were sort of the riffraff, or what's left over in society. You see, the monks, it's not like Thailand where the monks were on the top of society. The monks were on the bottom of society. They were the excluded. We are all Confucians, you see, and you Buddhists, you riffraff. We don't deal with you folks, you see. And so it might have been that this Confucian-looking scholar is calling out to the Buddhist monk, "Hey, where are you up to? Out here on the bridge? Where, you heading to the temple up here? Where are you going?" He just ignores it.
But his staff is pointed to the clouds, is it?
Yeah, he points his staff to the clouds and just walks on. It doesn't deign to give the Confucian scholar a single word.
Yeah, it's a little.
He's pointing to the cloud, but some people interpret like a heaven or
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where I'm headed.
nirvana.
Look where I'm headed.
Yeah.
You stay down there.
Yeah, exactly. All sorts of wonderful symbolism in this poem. Okay, my time is up. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure speaking.
Oh, thank you so
you.
much.
Thank
This
you.